and comes back up to the contact. So it's got this scalloped edge to it. If you draw that straight across, you're going to lose a lot of points. Dr. Smith likes to see, and it's the proper way to do it, he likes to see that scallop that goes from contact down to the cingulum. Here's my tip. If you get a lower cast, do a lingual plate. All right? Yes, you can do a lingual bar, or you can do a lingual plate. But the lingual bar comes with a lot of restrictions. The bar has to be a certain width. You have to be a certain distance off the free gingival margin. A lingual plate doesn't come with any restrictions. You can't say a lingual plate is wrong in any case. I can say that the lingual bar is wrong because maybe you don't have room above the height of the printer. So my tip is that if I got a lower cast in practice, you may find times that you do a lingual bar. I will say in my practice I did a lot more lingual plates than I did lingual bars. One of the reasons is because I was always prepared, and if the patient lost another anterior tooth, it's much easier to add it to the framework. So most of the time I would do a lingual plate. But you know, there are times that a patient comes in with a lingual bar, they love what they have, so you're going to keep them with the same thing that they have. But if I'm in a testing situation, I'm going to design it with a lingual bar. Just a Dr. Payne thing is I'm kind of picky on the fact that I hate dropping down and creating this window and coming back up the distance of one tooth. All right, that's just me. But again, why make your life more stressful during an exam where this window has to be at least 3 millimeters by 3 millimeters, and you've opened up the criteria that we can downgrade you because this window is too small, or this window is pinching the tissue, or it now has made your bar too narrow, right in this region. Why not just come right on along at or above the height of contour and bring that plate right on around and into that rest? That makes the most sense to me. Okay? On the other side, I don't have any problems here dropping down and coming back up because you're opening up a window the distance of 2 teeth. Less likely that we're going to pinch that tissue. Okay? Make sure you mark your guide planes. They need to be marked in red. Even if you don't do an adjustment for the guide plane. If the guide plane is already perfectly smooth and you don't need to adjust it, Dr. Smith wants guide planes marked in red. He likes them red, and he likes them with hash marks. Different schools, different parts of the country teach that differently. But for here, mark them in red, mark them with hash marks, because he wants you to know that you knew that they were there. When you do a plate on a tooth, any place that you do the plate, it needs to be at or above the height of contour and not interfere with the opposing bite. So you don't want it so high up that it's on these cusp tips, but you have to be at the height of contour. If you need to change a height of contour, circle it in red, put your red hash marks indicating you're going to make a change, and then Dr. Smith likes you to draw a pencil line at the bottom of the red to show where you're going to place it. So indicate where you're trying to take it to. You will not do the actual enamelplasty on your cast. I don't think. I'll go check. Do they actually do their enamelplasty for this test, or are they only doing the drawing? You want to ask her for me so I can let them know? Because I honestly don't know what he has you do on that. I know he has you carve it down because you're simulating this as your master cast. The test tomorrow is really a design test. Do you know the principles of design? Do you know where to use an RPI? Do you know where to use an RPA? Do you know where to use the circumferential clasp? Do you know how to draw them in relationship to the height of contour? So understanding those principles is what tomorrow's test is about. So actually, he does have you carve the rest seat prep. So he probably, the answer is probably going to come back that you do alter the guide plane. My guess would be you're right, because he does have you carve these rest seats. When you draw the metal in relationship to the vestibule, you want to stay just above the vestibule. Okay? You don't have to go down as deep as he did right here. To me, that's a little low, because metal is very difficult to adjust. Acrylic, you want the exact opposite. You want full extension into the vestibule. So you want it to go all the way down. You want to make sure that you cover your posterior anatomy on the lower, which is the retromolar pad, and on the upper, your hamular notch. You want to make sure that you skirt acrylic above the frenum. Okay, so you do need to do it just like you did in the course. So you will carve rest seat preps, and you will do the enamelplastic. So if you need to establish a guide plane, then you do want to go ahead and establish the guide plane. If you find you don't need to, though, still mark it in red with a red hash. You need to indicate that you know there's a guide plane there. Remember that acrylic meets metal right here at a 90-degree angle, right? So this joint right here, one of the only ones where you're at a 90-degree angle. Any place else that you have acrylic, it should be smooth. Eye bars, keep them mid-buckle or slightly mesial. Don't put them distal. Never distal to that height of contour. Keep your clasp long, flowing, rounded right here, and circle the undercut. The undercut mark is right here. And this clasp is drawn going on each side of the undercut mark and then goes up and touches the height of contour and comes back down. When you're drawing a circumferential clasp, your undercut should be at the bottom edge of the circumferential clasp and very much out at the very tip. So my instrument is, it's really hard to see, but the red pencil line is so right there you can see the red, undercut is on the bottom edge of the clasp. Right here is the height of contour. The terminal third of the clasp drops into the undercut. The clasp is wider back here at the base than it is out here at the terminal third. Tube teeth. We've had lots of controversies over tube teeth. So faculty can listen to this too. A tube tooth is generally only held in place by this post that's in the middle. And it is surrounded by metal. The tooth is actually precision fit to go right into that slot of the framework. It's glued into place. So when Dr. Smith has you mark it in brown, he's having you mark where the tooth is going to sit. Therefore, the brown and the blue are really the same line out here. It is acceptable to have the brown inside the blue, in which case that would indicate that there's going to be a little band of metal out here with the tooth above it. That's perfectly fine. You can have a little bit of acrylic that extends out beyond also, especially if you're using a braided post. Because a braided post is actually held in place, the denture tooth will be held in place with denture acrylic. So on a braided post, you will normally have a little acrylic flange. I was always taught if the acrylic does go over the metal, then the acrylic should go all the way to the vestibule. Dr. Smith does not feel that way, so there's been a little controversy on that. We've tried to make sure that you didn't get penalized in grading on that, because I know different faculty have answered different ways. But if I'm using a tooth or a braided post for this examination, don't make us have to make that choice. Just don't extend the acrylic all the way to the vestibule on that side. Either leave the metal a little outside the acrylic or the acrylic a little outside the metal, or put them on top of each other and you're going to be fine. Any other place that you have acrylic, it should extend to the full extent of the vestibule. All right? Any time that you have an edentulous area, you are thinking RPI or RPA. It's your only two choices. Don't make this test complicated. Yes, we can argue about, well, couldn't I use a distal rest and use a combination clasp where I'm using a Rottweiler? Yes, you can. But why? Okay? Don't make your life complex. If you have a distal extension area, think RPI, RPA. It's your only two choices. They're both the same system as far as a mesial rest and a distal guide plane. They vary based upon the clasp. Both are infrabulge clasps. Unless there's a contraindication to an I-bar, you should only be thinking RPI. The literature all supports that this case on this side should be treated with RPI. If you have a contraindication to an I-bar, like a high frenum attachment, or a large bony exostosis, or no mid-buccal undercut, then you might think about using an RPA. Otherwise, RPI. Anytime you have a space, Dr. Payne's rule, put a rest on each side of the space and make your life simple. All right? Dr. Smith has a rule that he never likes to go more than 8 teeth. 6 teeth. This one's 8. This is his drawing. But you guys know better, whatever he said in lecture. But he doesn't like to skirt more than 6 or 8 teeth without putting a rest. All right? Remember fulcrum lines. If you have a fulcrum line in a class 1 or a class 2 partial, when you have a fulcrum line, you don't put a clasp anterior to the fulcrum line. Okay? So we're going to clasp this tooth, but we are not going to have clasps on these teeth. These are indirect retainers now. Fulcrum line is here. Indirect retainer anterior to it and perpendicular to the fulcrum line at a spot that's convenient to place it. Much easier to cut an occlusal rest than it is to cut the cingulum rest. So I'm going to put it in that mesial fossa. Alright? Big mistakes